Hello again, YouTube. Tristan Blaze back again with another Dredge deck. Dredge deck, Legacy Wonderful World of Dredge, part 8437. Back again. We're going to discuss, this is going to be the last time I do a Dredge deck because I'm like, oh man, I got so many Dredge decks on there. And I got like other deck techs I'm working on, so I want to kind of get away from Dredge and go into a bit more because it's just becoming more and more Dredge, and I love Dredge, but it's just like, my God, I gotta play something else. I gotta build something else. So we're gonna start out with the basic accompaniment, our Dredge, Shambling Shell, Stinkweed Imp, Grave Troll, Golgari Thug. We got our 16 Dredgers. We got our Phantasmagorian, our Cabal Therapies. We got our normal standard creatures that, come back from the graveyard, triggered upon going to the graveyard. Bridge from Below, Dread Return, Icarids, Narcomoebas, Nether Shadows, as well as Flayer the Hatebound. We have our Street Wraiths, our Sickening Shoals, as well as our Grizzlebrand. I don't know if I touched upon this in my last Dredge build with Grizzlebrand and Dakmore Salvage with Bloodghasts. But Flayer the Hatebound grants the creature that comes into play from the graveyard the damage ability. So it can damage you when it comes into play. So a Grizzlebrand will deal 7 and you will gain 7 life due to the lifelink. Now, this deck is a bit different because we're running Dryad Arbor. The reason why it's different than the Bloodghast variant is it's not really a landfall trigger that we're worried about. It's, number one, it's an extra creature, okay, obviously. So you have, say you have like an Icarid and a Nether Shadow, and that's all. And you have your Dryad Arbor in your hand. Your opponent doesn't really think you can, and you Dredge, you don't get anything, you don't get any Narcomoebas. So, you can't cast Dread Return. So your opponent's like, okay, he can't cast Dread Return and combo out. You lay your Dryad Arbor. Not only do you have the ability, because it's a creature, but if you need to, in certain situations, you can pay for days because it has the ability to tap, add 1 green to your mana pool. And the interesting thing about this is, the interesting thing about the deck that runs Dryad Arbor is not really the fact that it just has an extra creature. It's more based on the sideboard because, like my Dakmore Salvage build, we got some interesting tricks in the sideboard. And what we're going to do is we're going to clean this up real quick, and then we're going to get into the sideboard, which is going to be the bulk of this video because there are a lot of interesting things that we can do with it because of Dryad Arbor. This is where your manaless Dredge build with Dryad Arbors get rather interesting because you can pack a lot of hate into the deck. You can pack a lot of hate in here. Number one, I always prefer to run like 2 more copies of Unmask. It's a free discard spell. I love it. It's interesting. We also have our 2 Verdant Catacombs and a Forest. So we can fetch a Dryad Arbor, give us that 3rd creature if we need to for our Dread Return if possible, or give us a really, really hilarious way to hate out with the ability to tap for green mana. Number 1, obviously Nature's Claim. In terms of life gain, I don't really worry about it. If you reanimate a Grave Troll, that guy's like 30-something, and that's pretty much game unless they have a very, very impressive life gain build. Now, you got Rest in Peace, you got Leyline of the Void. In terms of artifacts, Relic, Crypt, Nile Spellbomb, those are going to be used in response to a Nature's Claim. That's what you want. You want them to blow it when you can still do something. You want them to basically blow their crypt or their relic instead of on their terms, on your terms. Yeah, you're going to lose your graveyard, but it's better to lose 10 cards than lose 30. Because those extra 20 cards you might end up getting in there will possibly let you win the game. But if you lost them all, you're not going to win. Grafdigger's Cage being another good card to just nuke for no other reason outside of hating it routinely. Reverent Silence, again, enchantment hate. Artifacts really aren't a big problem. Predominantly outside of like Grafdigger's Cage, basically, they're pretty much like a one-shot use. But things like Leyline of the Void, Rest in Peace, Ground Seal, let's see, Leyline of Sanctity if you're going for the combo kill because you can't beat face on the ground. Again, we're not worried about actually the life gain. We're not worried about the 6 life they gain. We're worried about nuking all the enchantments. And I got Reverent Silence in my Charbelcher build for those random decks that can drop a turn 1 Leyline of Sanctity, so I can just land grant into my Taiga and then just blow it up. What we also have is our Noxious Revivals. Now this is your jack of all trades. 1, Surgical Extraction is more played than Extirpate. Extirpate, even though it has split second and basically can't be countered unless you do a blind flip off of a countertop, well, counterbalance. Most people use Surgical Extraction simply because it's pay 2 life, boom. Don't gotta. I can do it tapped out. I can do it in a non-black build. This is your basic counterspell for Surgical Extraction. If they target something, let's say I'm going to target Unmask. Well, I Noxious Revival this copy that I'm targeting, so now there's no legal target. Surgical Extraction will fail upon resolution. It will be countered on resolution because there are no legal targets. There's no legal target for the spell. So it's a pseudo counterspell in green that you can pay 2 life for, which I find hilarious as fuck. In terms of mass removal, like mass graveyard removal, you can get a few cards back. You can get a Narcomoeba back if you have the ability to say, let's say you have the ability to get something in your graveyard. You can top deck that Narcomoeba, get it back in there. You can top deck a hate card like Reverent Silence again. Maybe they dropped another Leyline of Sanctity or Leyline of the Void. You can top deck that and nuke it again. Top deck another Nature's Claim for that second Grafdigger's Cage they have. You can mess up when people when people drop brainstorms. You can when people cast brainstorm. You can mess with their brainstorm by just end of your turn Noxious Revival. Or like right after they resolve a brainstorm, if there's no fetch land on the table, you can just Noxious Revival just a land or a wasteland or something, anything that's basically useless to your opponent. You can just put it on top of your deck. It's just so hilarious because you can do so much hilarity with it. You can save your Dread Returns from a Surgical Extraction. You can save a Dredger if they're targeting it. I mean, in terms of what would I do Surgical Extraction wise against a Dredge build, there's 2 schools of thought. One is taking out the bridge from below to keep them from making tokens. The other is taking out Golgari Grave Troll to slow them down. Those are completely independent choices that have to be made in the situation at hand. Like in that situation that you're going to be at in that game, it might be better to pull the bridges out. Or it might be better to pull the grave trolls out. It just depends on the situation, the board state, you know, what's in your hand, and very, very, very interesting situations you'll get into. Revival gives you an out. It gives you the ability to say, well, I'm just going to top deck whatever you target. Save a hate piece, save a combo piece, you know, reuse Narc Amoeba if you want to. It can be really, really funny to just Noxious Revival something and counter a surgical extraction upon resolution that way. It is hilarious. Plus, you could also pay for it if you really needed to tap the mana. You could actually pay for it. So this is as of right now, the very last Dredge build I'm doing. Maybe something in the future will come up. And the only changes I might make would be to take out Unmask for another Revival and another Nature's Claim. But outside of that, this is what I would run if I ran a Dryad Arbor build. In terms of what would I bring to a tournament, now I'm thinking more like my LED build. I'd have to get my 4th copy of Lion's Eye Diamond, but I would just bring my Lion's Eye Diamond build because it's more explosive. You could do the Flamekin Zealot turn 1 kill if you're lucky. You have more options for your hate because you have your Rainbow lands, but manaless Dredge with no land and just the Bolstered Spy combo is the cheapest variant you could run. It's a these are all very, very cheap decks. They're not really that massively expensive. A couple of $100 and you'll have a decent manaless Dredge build. So I'm getting ready for Thanksgiving, and after Thanksgiving, I'm going to come back with my red-white goblin build probably, and see how you guys like some of the card choices in that build. So, like, comment, subscribe, share this video if you got, friends that play Magic and they like Legacy, they like Dredge, share the Dredge videos with them because I'm sure they're going to love it. Peace.